Alan, so much is happening. They're imploding the dollar. They're bringing in world government. They're openly saying no babysitting, no selling watermelons on the side of the road. We're going to give you $100,000 fines for garage sales. The same plans in Europe, in Asia, in the U.S. are being implemented. Same names. Open announcement of world government. There's no more debating it. This is the true emergence. I want to go over all of this with you today. But before we get into that, what is most important right now in the mind of Alan Watt in your deep reflection and analysis as you cut through the matrix? What's key that's developing right now that Alan Watt thinks we should all know about?
I think we should know what the New World Order really is. It's a non-democratic system, a world to be ruled by experts and professionals from all different sciences, including all the social sciences. They go under the term of world peace, and that sounds nice and fuzzy to most people, but when you break down in their own writings, from their own writings, what they mean by world peace, it literally is a form of totalitarianism from birth to grave, to do with, in fact, they wanted to separate the children completely from parents so they wouldn't be contaminated with old-fashioned values and ideas. But they found with scientific indoctrination, it's kindergarten onwards, any parental input is made null and void. And so they've pretty well reached that stage. They can literally program the generations with every intake, every year of kindergarten, upgrade incrementally for what they will experience in their lifetime, and they'll accept that which they experience because they've been taught it at school as coming. So what you're looking at really is a totalitarian world system. A depopulation plan is at the top of it too. The unfit, as they call them, in a post-industrial era. Remember, too, all the scientists across the world now and all the professions believe in evolution. It's taught right off the bat. They believe in Darwinian evolution, survival of the fittest. They believe that we're the old man. All the old types that used to work in factories, the blue-collar workers, are now obsolete with the emergence of science and robots and genetic technology. They can create new types of better servants and not as many as they have now. All of this is coming down the pipe, as we see. Even the move, as you say, to stop neighbors from looking after your child for a couple of hours when they run off for some groceries is forbidden across the board in all the countries at the same time, as you say. And that is also to stop contamination and bonding to other people in your little locality with old-fashioned ideas. It's okay to put them into a recommended state-approved daycare place for a day because they get the correct kind of indoctrination.
And simultaneously, Europe and the U.S. and England and Canada announced they want year-round school, and the internal documents 20 years ago said to break up the families entirely. They've got the men and women working overtime so they can't spend time with their kids. And then if you want to use the neighbor, in fact, it even said in England, BBC, 2 groups of police officers aren't allowed to watch their own kids. And the thing was, wow, even the godlike police aren't allowed to watch their kids.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
And then now 20,000 homes in England, they have cameras watching the kids that they go to bed on time, eat what they're supposed to. This is Orwell.
Yes, and instead that's a pilot project for the rest of the country. And whatever happens in Britain eventually, very rapidly actually, is introduced across the British Commonwealth. And we're still a Commonwealth. We're still basically a subsidiary of Britain. And then the U.S. picks it up very quickly too. Everything's working together because we're already under a global system. We have been for a long time. And before even the war that started on Iraq, the first one, Gulf War I, we're being fed on the news that we're all global, global, global. We went back to being national again when they wanted recruits for the military. They've kept that up for face value, but in reality, they've really rolled ahead with the globalism. And every law, really, that comes down to every nation comes from one of the departments of the United Nations, is signed into treaty automatically in all the countries.
And we're going to speak more about that, but since you mentioned the military, notice how in March of last year, in the U.S., in England, and in Canada, but also in Ireland and Scotland, simultaneously, because I'm, just like you do, scanning all the Western media, also Asian media that's in English, simultaneously on the same day, They deployed troops in downtown cities and said, oh, they're just helping with drunk drivers, helping with checkpoints. And now and then they go, oh, yes, it's for terrorists and for gun owners. So right as they implode the economy, they deploy the troops worldwide and then admit it's global. I mean, it's all a private corporate Borg deploying this, now coming after our farms and ranches, our children, any form of independence.
Yes, they laid out a plan a long time ago when they set up the League of Nations, the forerunner of the United Nations, and in their own charter they said eventually they'd ban all private property. They'd also have to eradicate farming because farming was too important to be left to farmers. Big corporations would run the farming of the world. We're simply going through a pre-planned agenda, but now with the century of change, and that's the key to it, this is the century of change that all academia was talking about for 50-odd years. We're into the century of change. It's not democratic. We see now the rise of this entity, this legal entity of the EU, Economic Union, as a sovereign new Soviet, a bigger Soviet system than the old Soviet system, non-democratic, that admits in its own publications and in the major media that all the decisions are made by an executive branch at the top with secret committees, and the politicians have no input into the lawmaking. All they can do is complain, and that's it. This is not a post-democratic world we're in. And when you read the writings of the big players in the last 50 to 100 years involved in these international movements, like the Huxleys, like both the Huxleys, in fact, Julian and Aldous Huxley and Russell and others, they say straight out that this world will be run by a form of scientific dictatorship where the public will simply obey. That's the whole key to everything now, is obey. You're an animal. We can retrain you like any animal, the Pavlovian concept, and your job is to serve the world state. That's what it's all about.
Alan, I want to bring up a key point here, and I want you to speak to this, studying their operations. At the heart of it, they are social Darwinists. They're saying if we kill 1 billion people, since we are in the positions of power, that means genetically we got the power because we were the best, and so we're helping the earth by killing you. They're testing soft kill weapons, sterilization, as the White House science czar spoke about. I want to go over this with you today. But more than that, they get the general public to adopt the eugenics ideas, but they don't even consciously know why humans are a parasite. Yeah, there's too many of us. We don't have art and literature and spacecraft, and, we can't do incredible things, which we actually are an incredible species, a wonderful species, a self-aware species, but the elites believe they're gods. They believe they're wonderful, and they want to control the future, and so they only sell the public on lowering their survival instinct so they will accept and make it a religious sacrament, dying for their carbon footprint, or not having children, or being sacrificed to the earth. And so this idea that man is crud, man is crap, they sell this and say, you have no rights, you're just an animal. It's a mind game. It's a huckster scam to say you can make no decisions, you're just programmed. But then, the elites have to have their rights. They have to have their bodyguards. They're free. They write all this sick, dark, nihilistic poetry about how they control everything and they'll destroy everything if they want to. So inherently, these are very sick, evil control freaks.
There's no doubt about it at all. It's a religion with them. It's a complete, it fulfills all the criteria of a religion. It's a belief system and superior genetic, basically hereditary genetic stock. That's what they believe in, that they're from it. They believe that we are the leftover junk genes at the bottom. Otherwise, we would be up at the top. That's the simple reasoning that they have. And they believe in power. Total power is the main key to survival. Therefore, they're the ones at the top with the total power, and they do plan to exercise it. They are exercising it now. I just went through stuff that was released from the World Health Organization, from some of its meetings that they've never disclosed to the public before, and they admit during their own discussions, their internal debates, that most of these vaccines, all of the vaccines, in fact, the vast bulk of the contaminants in them, including genetic contaminants and viruses, are unknown to them. Sometimes 90% of every inoculation effects on the body, except with the new adjuvants they're using for this upcoming swine flu shot. They do know that they're using, rather than chicken eggs, they're using cancer viruses. They admit that in their own writings. They're using cancer viruses for the simple reason that cancer viruses are almost indestructible, so it will stay in your body forever, supposedly to protect your body.
No.
But at the same time, it might just give you cancer. This is incredible science. In other words, they know what they're doing. They're taking the population down, not just at a drastic step all at once, but depending on your shot and your physiology, it will all start dying off much, much faster over the next few years.
Now, Alan, stop. This is mind-blowing, and we're on the same page. This is admitted in hundreds of government textbooks like Eco-Science by the White House Science Czar. We now have bought over 10 books he authored, all saying the same sickening stuff about how they would do this, inject us with cancer viruses that would trigger as soon as our hormone levels lowered in men and women between 45 and 65.